Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Branch Podcast. I'm Pastor Chris. I really hope that you had a great Thanksgiving. We are back this week with another great conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about technology, AI, and kind of how we should think about that in the realm of theology and just kind of how it plays out in our lives as Christians. So hope that you enjoy the conversation and hope that it's helpful for you as you think about how to integrate technology into your life. So what's the coolest piece of technology that you have? What's the piece of tech that you have that you're like, this brings me joy? Like, I like using this, or you find it super functional, or it's been a helpful part of your life?
Well, I mean, I had a different answer until you said brings you joy. Well, I guess it brings me joy. I mean, I like power tools, like that technology. I think when you have the perfect tool for the perfect job that you have, nothing is cooler than that. Mm-hmm. I mean, even simple stuff like we like to cut down our Christmas tree every year, and we go to Psalm Farm, and it's awesome. It's the best place on earth for that kind of thing. But you can go there and they have like a bunch of saws you can get, like the manual ones. Well, I just bring a Sawzall, and it just takes you, I mean, literally 5 seconds. It's like right through it, and I just think, yes, that's the coolest tool that it just, streamlines something. So on that side, on the tech side of things, I mean, a computer is just incredible for all it can do. I mean, I think about how I utilize it for sermon prep and different things. I have a program, Logos. Mm-hmm. You and I, all three of us use it, but Logos, I mean, I probably have, I don't know, a database of 60 commentaries in there and different language Bibles and different things. I can study all of those things, do searches, get all the information I need. And I mean, what used to be impossible or take hours and hours and hours, you can do in a few moments. And I just think, it's streamlined my life that way.
Yeah. Well, I think the idea of a cell phone being able to do so many things on one device is really, I don't think we ever actually take inventory of that fact that I think everybody knows how often we use cell phones, but to actually stop and think how many different applications we use it for during the day. Right. I mean, and not only that, but to have information at your fingertips, like earlier today, locking my keys in my car, I'm able to go on YouTube and look up videos specifically like Toyota Corolla. Someone, has a video out there, like just that level of access to information and things is really crazy. I was thinking, I don't use FaceTime a ton, but I think FaceTime is so cool only in the sense of trying to explain anyone from past generations that there's this technology where you can see someone on this little device and they could be on the other side of the planet is seriously the craziest thing ever to describe to somebody before the generation of smartphones that would be a possibility. And it very much seems just the stuff of, science fiction. It just doesn't seem real.
Do you remember when we were kids, the cartoon Dick Tracy? Mm-hmm. And I know it's even older than our generation, but the whole idea he could talk to somebody on his watch. And I'm like,
I can never have that.
100% we can do that now. But I would say for me, I'm a big fan of the printing press. I think that's a great move in technology. Just kidding.
Books are good.
Books are great.
I thought you could be serious because literally 15 minutes ago, you guys are going over different print things for some books that we have that are coming out. And you were touching the different papers on it and stuff. So.
Yeah. So books are cool. And honestly, tech is really anything like technological advances. So that's part of it. But my serious answer is I love my GPS watch. That is a piece of equipment that I think I'd be really sad if I had to live without it. I enjoy it. I use it for running, use it for just pretty much everyday stuff. And so I really like my GPS watch.
I'll tell you, if you guys want to see something crazy, go back and watch Steve Jobs, his keynote address when he is introducing the iPhone the first time. Because you don't realize how that changed everything. Because he was he was to the crowd saying, we are releasing, and he was naming different things. We're releasing a device that you can have the internet, a device that you can have email, a device. And then when you realize it is the same device, and it wasn't, if you remember this, prior to that, you had basically BlackBerry style email, physical keyboards. Yep. And then you had a version of the internet that was black and white.
It was so bad.
So bad.
It was terrible.
I mean, terrible. And that was the first device that actually could take you to a legit internet. Yeah. And then now, with the camera on there and then video and all the different things.
It's crazy.
And then all the millions of apps. Yep. Yeah.
Are you guys early adopters? Do you tech quick?
Yeah. I mean, in high school, it sounds funny, but I had a pager in high school. The moment you could have a phone, I got a phone when I was in college. Like the moment it became like actually financially doable, because before then you could have like a cell phone, but it was like $5 a minute or some stupid number.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm an early adopter of technology. I love it.
I wouldn't say like on that spectrum I'm like the earliest, but I'm by no means a laggard. Like I like technology, I like advancement, but I'm also not like the person who's going to chase after every new shiny thing. And maybe that's just like me being super frugal, like naturally that's just how I am. Sure. So I think that kind of butts up against it, but I do like things. I'm curious about new technology and stuff like that. So I find it fascinating. I think the thing for me, like having an iPhone for so many years, there have been some where they like release a new iPhone and I'm like, like I don't notice any, like there's nothing that I've heard that really is like, oh, I really need to go get the next new iPhone.
Yeah.
But I think when there have been bigger advancements in some of the technologies and stuff, I think then it's more appealing.
I like to early adopt because I like to, for one, I like new things, but two, like when something stops functioning the way that it should, I'm always looking forward to getting back to like the device working the way it's supposed to. So like, I didn't need new features on the new phone I got, but my phone doesn't die.
Yeah, your battery.
I don't have to charge it 3 times a day. You know what I mean? To make it work. So like that for me, those are the big things. It's functionality and stuff.
For sure.
So, well, the reason I asked this question is today I want to talk a little bit about technology and theology. I want to talk a little bit about how we think about and how we should think about technology, particularly around the topic of artificial intelligence, AI, because it is so polarizing in our society. There's people who think that artificial intelligence is essentially what we see in Terminator 2. It's going to end the world. They're going to take over, and we're going to fight a battle against robots.
Wait, you don't think that?
Yeah. And then there's the other side of it that's like, this is the best thing in the world. It's going to save humanity. And so I want to just talk about it. It's here. It's real. It's something that we have to contend with. So how do we think about it in a theological context? And I just want to start by kicking it to you, Matthew, and asking, can you define artificial intelligence for those that might not actually have really put too much thought to it? What is it? And
yeah, I mean, I could do my best. I mean, basically, they're trying to get computers to think like people. So in the sense that like a person, you don't have to program, like a little child, you don't program them to know every single answer. What they do is throughout a process, they learn by recognizing patterns and things like that. And that's what AI is. It's programming computer programs to search basically the internet at this point and gather information and learn patterns, so that if someone's asking this question and it's been answered this way on 1 million websites, like it's helping them learn and understand. And so it's retaining information. I mean, the computer systems that are used to run the massive AI interfaces are, I mean, they're just huge, like bigger than we can even fathom. But again, yeah, it's just trying to pick up patterns so that it can think like a person, it can learn like a person, so they can actually get more intelligent, give more better answers. And then AI in the practical use, each company or each individual that's using it is then taking that ability or that technology and then specialize in it and what they need. So like a lot of, if you are using an app and you have a problem and you're even on websites and you're going to talk to customer service, just about every major company, their customer service, the basic level that you're talking to first is a computer. And so like I had this past week, I with Kroger, realized I had bought some stuff and they hadn't given me Kroger points for the fuel, and I bought some gift cards and supposed to get 4 times the points, and they had it. And so like on their app, I talked to customer service and they just tell you it's I mean, it's a computer, it's a bot or whatever. and it completely resolved my issue within a minute. I mean, it was very fast. I said, I got this, I should have had 4 times the points. I was missing this many points. And I came back and said, I can give you this many points. Will that resolve your issue? Yes. Okay. I've given you those points. Thank you. Have a good day. That's all computer, you know, it's not a person. So.
Yeah. So a lot of the things you're talking about are computers functioning as human beings. Yeah. And I think that the interesting question then poses into is how much of being human do we give to that? I mean, we've got the fact that God has made us in his image, and humanity has always been working to create tools to better to better find ways to be efficient in the work that they do, better ways to actually emulate God and be creative. But is it problematic that AI is so human like, or attempting to be human like? And how do we contend with that, with the whole idea of we are created in God's image and there's something unique about human beings?
Yeah, I guess for me, in my opinion, where it can become problematic is when it does try to replace something that can only be done on a spiritual level with God and even on a human level with other people. And I think that's some of the problems that we're seeing in our culture right now is some of the artificial intelligence is being designed to replace relationships. And that can even be a spiritual relationship. So they're so good at what they do, you can actually start to build a relationship with a computer. And we're seeing that in real time in our culture to the point where on a very dangerous level, there are a lot of young people, even middle school teenagers, like that age group, that are building these relationships, falling in love with someone online, the same way that you could have like a long distance romantic relationship where you're not in physical proximity, but through communication, you really start to build feelings. You're seeing that. And that's happening both. I said young people, it's happening as young as middle schoolers, but it's also happening with adults. And then also on the religion side or the spiritual side of people engaging it as they would a relationship with God, I think that'd be problematic for sure.
Yeah, the two things that I think about, like number one, thinking about AI as a tool, right? So I was having a conversation with my oldest son not too long ago, and he was basically trying to ask the question of like, how did human beings build things like cranes? And you're like, well, they had to build a machine that was big enough to build a bigger machine. Like they had just keep escalating at some point to build machinery that was big enough to lift up steel beams to be able to build skyscrapers. It really is a crazy thing to think about. But you think about like the essence of something like that, human beings are building things that are able to do what they are not able to do in a physical body, right? Like, and that is, I think, a part of what it means to be created in the image of God. Like we are creators, we reflect God in the way that we're able to build. And like that is one of the ways that we image God in the world. So I think when we think about AI in those terms, when it's being used as a tool that I think leads to human flourishing as the way that God would define it, then I think it's within the boundaries of what it's supposed to be used for. I think, like to Matthew's point, when it starts to replace things that are at the fundamental level of what it means to be human, namely, like even if we just boil it down to the great commandments of Jesus, right? To love God and to love people. If it's now in some way hindering that ability, like our ability to have a relationship with God, in some way it's replacing that, or our ability to have healthy relationships with other people, or our understanding of what it even means to be human. I think, again, AI being used as a supplementary thing to understand a concept that's going to, help me love a person better, right? So there's something that someone's going through, I don't understand it. I'm using AI to have a better understanding of this particular thing. Why? So I can engage with them, so I can have a conversation, so I can be better informed to better love them and be present with them. But like to your point, if I am now forging some sort of relationship with AI in whatever form it might come in, because there's all kinds of forms, and I've seen it, and I like what it's currently being developed as. I think when it replaces that, again, at a fundamental level is where we start to like replace things that could never truly replace what God intended. Like if you want to call it the flesh and blood or the spiritual side of things, AI does not have a soul. AI is not spiritual. It's information. It's synthesizing lots of information very quickly, which again can be used as a tool, which can be helpful, but shouldn't be used as a replacement to those fundamental aspects of what I would say it means to be human.
I think a lot of, even with like what you guys are talking about, is finding the line where it breaks. Like there are things that it's good for, things that it's not good for. Are there implications outside of even the immediate that we should think about when it comes to defining that line? And what I mean is, some people have talked about how AI is going to change human work as far as like replacing jobs, things like that. When we think about adopting technology and using that, like how do we integrate the vast implications of these choices and thinking about like whether we should use it or not use it?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes we go to fear when it comes to technology, and even some things that we say as a negative aren't really a negative. So when it says AI is going to start to do away with some jobs.
Yeah.
I think on the surface, when you hear that, you're thinking of the personal implications. So if it's doing away with this type of job and you know someone who has that type of job, you're like, oh, that's a bad thing because they're losing income, they have to find a new job. But the reality is that is what happens with all advancement of technology. So, I mean, even you talking about a crane took away multiple people's jobs who had horses and they were pulling things. And so what it's going to do is it just forces our culture to consistently adapt. And so what one job used to be one thing and now it needs to look differently. And so like you're going to have companies that are going to have people that specialize in the use of AI. So that's just a new job. The same way that coders became a thing when computers became a thing. And so like it might have done away with a lot of people who were manually, running numbers. Now computers can run numbers quicker. So it's always just a progression. I think how we've got to be careful is calling things right and wrong, like evil and good, because they are simply tools. Because we feel this tension in the church world where people are saying, like, what happens for a person or a church even, that uses AI in a way to create content? Is that okay? Because the computer created the content. And for some people, they would say, no, I only want content created by a person made in the image of God. And I think for us, we would say, no, that at times that's an incredible resource because here's what I'll tell you where I would draw the line. But so in that, we would say the good of it is it really can streamline something that used to take us so many hours, but now can be done so much quicker. So I can put information in, like the bullet point information of everything I need covered in a document and say, create this document for me. And literally something that would take me now 5 minutes used to take me 2 hours or 5 hours. And it creates that document. Even with information, here's all the information. I can take my sermon notes. So I spend a lot of time on my sermon notes. I could put that into AI and say, give me 10 good questions from that. And it pumps them out. And now I have a great study guide for someone that wants to engage it. So to me, I go, man, that's great. Where I think it'd be a problem is if I went there and I said, write my sermon. You know what I mean? Like, I want to talk about fill in the blank, give me a sermon on that. And, but I'll say this, I use AI every single day. And I'll use it now as a study tool in the sense of, so my other program that I talked about earlier, Logos, I know how to work that to break down a passage and stuff, but there are, even within that, I might do a word search and say like, give me the word joy everywhere in the Bible, right? And so Logos can give me a list of every time that appears. I can go to AI though and say, give me 5 different ways that the word joy was used in the Bible. And it can give me an explanation of those. And now that helps me to better understand it. And it just gives me, it's just like another study tool. So I'm sorry I'm being long-winded, but it's like, that's that tension that we're trying to navigate of how to use it without replacing what our calling is in that role, but using it strategically. So I think you use AI quite a bit too, don't you?
I do, yeah.
You find it useful?
And I think it is that separation of it's a tool that is helpful and it's not replacing the creative process. And I think that's where I draw the line is like, and there are some things that I absolutely let it create for me because it's something that is, I would say is benign spiritually, if I can use that term. Right. It's not creating content for the purpose of teaching or leading, you know what I'm saying? As far as that goes, though I will let it synthesize that type of information. You said like creating study guides off of your sermon notes. We utilize that all the time to create study guides off of your sermon notes.
Right, because I mean, how many times, like, I don't mean this to throw shade at any of us, but like, we could do it and then you have it do it and you go, well, that's actually better.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, wouldn't we want better? And that because it's taking a lot of information and even using other methods that other people have done that have been successful and put it into one document.
But as far as writing material, like I would never, and there's a lot of discussion right now as far as academics goes, like the use of AI in academics and why you should use it, how you should use it, why you shouldn't use it, that sort of thing. But the whole idea of us not using our brains any longer to create content, to think about and to process the things that God is doing, because you and I, all three of us who create content, you know that's one of the key ways that God interacts with us. Like, and so like, as we're thinking about what to teach, as we're thinking about what we want to write in a devotion or what we want to say, like those things are moments when God is speaking to us. And so like, we don't want to replace that part of the process. But if there are auxiliary things off of the thing that we feel like God's speaking to us, then I'm all for it. I think it's helpful.
Yeah, I think like the place my mind went is right that it can't replace personal engagement with God. It can't replace personal wrestling with the scriptures. It can't replace prayerfulness in our preparation of a message or whatever the content might be, because it's been recently said, but like AI doesn't have the Holy Spirit, right? Like, so in that way, AI, right, it's not a human being. Yes, it can, it's basically a supercomputer that can synthesize information and process information very quickly. But there is, like, if we believe the reality of God, if we believe the reality of the Holy Spirit that dwells within us, then there is something sacred, there's something separate to this dynamic where it's not just purely information based. Like, because I think all of us would agree with that, right? That like on a Sunday morning, Matthew, when you give a message, it's not just merely an intellectual exercise, right? That there is a spiritual component to this, that there's a prayerfulness, there is a belief that God's word is not only true, but that we need the Lord to use this message to touch people's hearts and inform their minds and bring transformation in a way that is supernatural. Now, if you're using AI as a study resource to do a deeper dive and understanding something, in my mind, that's no different than cracking open a bunch of books and doing the reading, right? If it's able to help us gather information quickly to better understand it, but that doesn't replace the prayer aspect. It doesn't replace even, the reflection aspect. As much as we joke about C.S. Lewis on this podcast, you think about people like that in his era, they were known for being thinkers, and they took large amounts of time in processing and thinking. And I do think that there's something to be said about that the danger of AI could be that in everything we do now, this is kind of the fast food mindset of like, we're not going to ponder it. We're not going to reflect on it. We're not going to meditate. We're not going to wrestle with it. We're just going to get the information quickly and kind of sidestep that process of really deeply considering some of the truths of God's word and how they affect us and how they might affect people. And that really deep engagement is what I would call it. I think that's where there's a potential danger if our only goal is efficiency, right? Like in producing a message, a sermon, or some video content that's going to teach people about the Bible. If our only concern is efficiency, I'm not saying it shouldn't be a concern in how we gather information, but if that's our main concern, our only concern, I think then we've missed the spiritual realities that should be driving so much of what we do. And that's even for me to say that out loud is convicting, because I think sometimes you can get in that mode of like, I got to do things, I got to get stuff done. And we actually can remove the spiritual component of it, not realizing that should really be the first priority.
I was going to say, that's been the biggest check for me when I go to sit down to use it, is if I am just cranking things off my list, trying to get things done, and it becomes I'm just going to it for the sheer fact that it's easier for me to have AI spit it out than it is for me to actually produce it. Like, I think that's always a check for me, because like, am I just being productive, or am I essentially abdicating the thing that I should be doing with the work that's at hand? So
see, I'm wired so differently. I love the productivity side of it. I'm like, yes, nailed it. One more thing.
But I just don't want that to be my ultimate.
No, I get that.
What I mean?
No, 100%. And I don't want to lose creativity. That's my big check too. Yeah. I do have a caution of allowing young kids to use it, because I do think there's an important season of life through high school and college where you need to learn how to form thoughts on your own. Because I even see it now, like engaging with my sons in the past, like they've sent me stuff that they've written, and I look at it and I go, guys, AI wrote that. Because I can tell it's too good. It's too good for your age group. It's too good from the conversations that you and I have had, and I push back on them. But it's just such a natural part of culture now that what they did is they did some research. They put their research into it, but then it assembled it in an order. So like they did some of the work, but the actual work of putting it into order, creating thoughts, reading it over, going like, that's not as clean as I want it. Like that's a process, and I don't want to lose that too, because like
100%.
There are times I've done like I'll use it quite a bit for like just general email. If I have to send out a long email explaining a bunch of policy stuff to like staff or something like that, I'll put all that information in and give it all the promptings that I need. It pumps it out. I'll go through and tweak it so it's more my verbiage and my language and stuff. But when it comes to like actually writing my heart out about something, I won't do that because I want to keep that edge to me, that I have the ability to use words and to form things and to say things the way that I want. And I want to keep my voice. But I think that's a personal check to it. But I think we're all in the process right now of learning AI. Yeah. It's just any technology. The first time we all got cell phones, we all had to learn how to use cell phones, and then you get the new app, and then you get the new GPS watch. You go through a season of trying to figure it out. Yeah. When I first got my Apple Watch, I probably was more obsessed with it, honestly, where I was constantly focusing. Now I have almost every notification turned off on it. Yeah. That I use it for what I need it for. Yeah. I use it for exercise. I use it to get some notifications that I need. Yeah. And it's like, you have to find what are the parameters that I'm going to use to maximize this and not allow it to be a distraction and to harm me. And I think AI, we're figuring that out right now.
Yeah. So I just had this question in my mind as you were talking about that. So like, what does this do when you think about the unique personalities of how God has created people? Is there a danger in that almost being washed away? So like when you think about like something like artistic expression, right? Whether it be poetry, whether it be cinema, like whatever you want to, whatever form you want to talk about. Yeah. Like the one thing that you look around in the world and you're like, man, God has created people differently. Like there's a uniqueness to each individual, our stories, even the way that we process information because of our stories and our upbringings and our experiences and our learnings and all of these things that inform this interplay, like the way that we engage with the world around us. Like, is there a danger that AI in many ways strips away that uniqueness? And I don't want to say to the degree of like, okay, we're no longer made in the image of God, but the uniqueness of what that looks like from each individual standpoint. If everybody's simply using AI and we're simply approaching life based on pure information or again, efficiency, is there a danger in where some of that becomes lost in the process?
I think the question mark that sits in my mind is, will it turn out the same way that social media turned out in some ways? We now on the back end of social media know a lot of the dangers, and we're able to see a lot more of the negative implications of what happened. I think you're right. I think we're still figuring out how AI is, how we're interacting with it, how the best way to use it so we don't lose all of those things. And I just don't know. Like I think that's the question mark I have in my mind is I don't know how it shapes and strips us of the opportunity to learn through both the things we struggle through because we're making things more convenient. Do we lose something in the struggle of it? You know what I mean? Right. Of having to work through and process through that over a long period of time, or something that takes us longer to do. Are we losing something at that? But again, I think those are questions that I think we ask with every level of technology. Yeah. We've become unhealthier because we drive cars around all the time instead of walking everywhere we go. You know what I'm saying? So there's always going to be positive and negative implications that come with any technological advance. It's how do we adapt? How do we mitigate those things? And so there were positives for social media. It connected people over long distances, but there's also the negative side of that. And I think we have to just always go into it with our eyes open to both of those things. Yeah.
The thing that I think about, so I remember reading this article a while ago. It was talking about how, like the younger generation kids nowadays have tablets and or parents will put a tablet in their hand in a restaurant or driving in a car. And it was basically talking about how there's been the elimination of boredom and how that is something to be lamented in the sense that you think about when you were a kid, you were looking out the window, you were counting cows when you were driving by a farm. Like you were trying to engage with the world around you in a substantial way, the best that you knew how. And some of those things have kind of removed that, right? So like kids using their imaginations and using creativity, it's kind of been stripped away. And I wonder if there's a part of this that happens with AI, even like specifically in communication, right? For those of us who grew up in a generation where like you're used to being able to talk to people, you're used to engaging with people, you can make an appointment. I know it's one of the jokes of the younger generation, they can't pick up the phone and make their own appointment. But like there's a part of me that questions, is something like AI going to, in many aspects, strip that part of our humanity away from us to where we're no longer able to communicate because we're so used to having something else do that for us. So whether that be processing information to send an email or to write a paper or whatever that is, we're not actually engaging in the process of thinking through how might I want to say this, or how might I communicate this, to the point where we've actually lost the ability to do so in any sort of substantial way.
Yeah. The only thing I can say is, I mean, what we keep saying is, as I think about it, is we're going to learn how to utilize it and learn to remove what is bad. I mean, because I would imagine with every advancement of technology, there were fears that came along with it. So from like cars, okay, now we're not going to be close enough in proximity to people. People are going to move further away. So relationships are going to be different. We're going to be out of shape because we're not walking as much as we used to. To even, I mean, just like all of the technologies of like, we're even seeing it now. Our kids, actually, their penmanship is getting worse and worse and worse because they're not having to write. Most of them now, if they're in the school system, are getting a Chromebook. Everything's on the computer. So like I've noticed even my kids, their handwriting, like my handwriting has always been bad. So I'm not like throwing shade at them, but I've noticed it's probably not as defined as it should be at their age levels. And it's just like, so you look at that and go like, so is that a bad thing? And it's like, in my mind, I go, I don't know. I mean, like at some point they were chiseling and then they were writing with something else and now they're typing. So you go, I don't know.
Do we as human beings just naturally neutralize the changes that come? You know what I mean?
Yeah. The challenge is, I think, in the creativity, the arts and stuff like that, is AI probably already can make better stuff than humans could. So like you could, I'm sure of it now, we could program a robot to paint and probably paint better than any human. You're seeing it now. The number one album that was released, I think on the Christian charts, was written by AI. Like someone did it. And there was like some pushback on it of like the songs. I know for me, there's a page on some social media stuff that takes scripture, just an actual like psalm of passage of scripture, and turns it into a song. And honestly, when I listen to it, I enjoy it. Like if I didn't know it was AI, I would even say it touches my spirit. I mean, and that's what I would say. So like earlier, we were talking about like that concept, and I look at it and I go like, it's not necessarily inspired by the Spirit of God because a computer did it, and yet God still used it to stir my spirit. And like even part of me goes like, should I feel guilty about that? Like, is that weird?
But if it's using the word of God, like, is there, you know what I'm saying? Like, does that negate it? And I don't know that it does, but because,
I don't know.
I mean, for the longest time, people read the word of God, and the only way that people heard it was, or experienced it, was by hearing it. And then we started writing it down, and then we talked about the printing press. Now everybody has one that they can carry, like that they could carry around. And now we all have 70 different translations right in our pocket with the iPhone. And so like,
and even the AI that allows like real-time translation, that you can now, I mean, like Apple has, you can put AirPods in and go to a place, and in real time, if someone's talking to you, it can interpret for you. And you just think about the possibilities of witnessing with people, of connecting people, of even helping people in cultures that were once isolated now feel more connected. A lot of good can come from it.
No, I just was going to say, and that's exactly going back to the earlier part of our conversation, right? Like talking about in what ways can this help us aid in human flourishing and ultimately like the agenda of God, which, so like you just gave an example of that, unreached people groups. Like one of the things that most missionaries have to do, right? There's the contextualization of like, I have to learn a language, I have to learn a culture. Can AI expedite that process where it's like, I'm able now to, have the language literally interpreted real time so that it can translate, I can communicate, or again, like Bible translation. Like there's so many different dynamics to this that it certainly could help. I think for me, on the other side of what we were just talking about before that, like I was thinking like the younger generation, if they grow up utilizing this so much, like how does this affect things like interpersonal skills? Because on the other side, my question is, again, if human relationships are central. So one of the things we've seen in the social media generation, I remember reading things like teen sex had gone down, and you're like, okay, like that's a good thing.
Great.
But it's
they're
a
not
bad
talking
reason.
to each other.
But it's a bad reason, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, that's a great thing that's happening. But the problem is it's because there's actually this disconnection. Right. So you have to ask yourself on the other side of this, is this in some ways going to strip that aspect of our humanity away from us, where we're not going to be able to engage as deeply with people, to sit and listen to someone, to actually be able to have communication skills, which are essential to any relationship, especially if you get married, but like to have relationships, to be able to communicate, to be able to process, to be able to deal with things, especially conflict and hard conversations. So that's the flip side for me. And again, it's more of a question than it is an assertion, but is AI going to affect our ability, the next generation? Again, it's different for those of us who grew up in a generation where you didn't have any of that stuff. So you were developing those skills as you learned and as you grew up. But what about the next generation? What about my kids right now, as they're getting older and utilizing these things? Is that going to have an impact on their ability to do that?
But I think here's where I'm hopeful. I'll say it this way: is so we're talking about. So we're a generation that was not raised with AI. Right. It's become a part of it. Mm-hmm. But this is an example I've used before. So one of the things that was so shocking to me is the staff here at the church were very intimidated by my texting. We've talked about this story before. So like they would ask me a question and I would respond one word with a period. So like, can we do this? Is this okay? Yes, period. And I just have a habit of always using punctuation because that's honestly how I was raised. Yeah. And it was like I had done this for years before someone had the courage to tell me that was like devastating some of the younger staff. Because to them, they read it as, yes, but this conversation is over. Let's not talk about it. Well, that could not be further from the way I was meaning it because I'm saying yes to their request. Right. They're like, can I do this? Yeah, absolutely. That's how I read it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go do it. And so like it became a joke, and we started talking about all the different things that us older that, they'd call, I'm not actually a boomer, but they'd be like boomer, like that mindset, how we communicated versus,
I said Gen X all the way, baby.
Yeah. And so like all the teasing going back and forth. The reason why I say all that is, so I had a discussion with my son Cole about this, and I realized I was wrong. So what the staff was asking was for more emojis and things like that. Well, to me, I'm just going to say a very general term here, but being a 46-year-old male, emojis was not a part of my rhythm, right? Like I rarely use emojis. It was not just a part of it. And I thought, that's stupid. You guys need to just basically grow up. Don't be this wimpy younger generation. Like that's how I initially thought. Yeah. And then I realized in a conversation with Cole is our generation did not communicate well digitally. So digital communication was like, I'm older than you, but like when you and I were going like college, basically that's when email was becoming more mainstream, probably a little bit you in high school, but all that, we did not master digital communication. This next generation, so like my son's generation, have mastered digital communication. They have taken what we could not do. Like we even had policies in the church. Don't handle anything serious by digital communication because we didn't know how to do it. No emotions communicated. It's tough. Cole's generation and the younger generation, because they were raised in it, mastered it. The reason why I say all that is I'm hopeful that the same thing will happen with AI, is that they'll look at what the good it provides, they'll take from that, and the negative they'll recognize. I think even this younger generation is recognizing the negative of social media. We were talking about that. Yeah. So we weren't raised on it, but then we took it and it kind of basically whacked out a generation. But I think this next younger generation is coming in going, we don't like all of this. And so you're seeing less involvement. They're seeing disconnection. And so like, I'm hoping they'll take AI and go, how can we use it for the best and strip away the rest? Because I think even like the interpersonal communication is something that does concern me. I did premarital counseling for a few years ago and discovered that when they were apart initially dating, they never used FaceTime, and they did all of their serious communication via text. So not even phone call, they did it by text. So initially, my generation, I heard that and I was like, well, that's a huge red flag. Like you guys got to learn face-to-face, and I stand by that. But I also recognize this generation, what texting allowed them to do is to process slower. Sure. So they get some information.
It's not pure emotion.
It's not pure emotion. Yeah. And so what my generation wanted to say was, that's wrong. You should never do that. Sure. But what I start to realize is maybe in some capacity, that might actually be better than getting face to face, exploding at each other in all the emotion and, and getting confusing. And so maybe it's not one or the other, it's a hybrid of that.
Yeah.
And so like I can even see in the future having AI in the home, like an Alexa type thing, like those devices that helps you navigate a fight, right? Like there might be a counselor thing where you go, hey, Alexa, we're both struggling with this. What's your thoughts? And like, it might be able to speak wisdom into it. Again, I'm just like what do they call it? Spitballing right now. But it might be something like that this generation betters it. And that's where I'm hopeful.
Yeah. An example of that, and I'm not going to use names because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but like, so someone using AI to kind of process their thoughts with AI. It's somebody like that we've been pastoral counseling, trying to help them navigate like a tough situation they're in. They're using AI, and AI is spitting out the same information that he's getting from his friends, from the pastor speaking into his life. And so there is a level of like, this is a helpful diagnostic, helpful processing tool that can be good. But I don't think human beings are going to change with whatever technology we create, we adopt, because we're always going to need to take steps of faith. We're always going to be challenged. And as pastors and people who call people to discipleship and to follow God, I think there's always going to be a level of like, we're going to have to help people make that step, but it's just going to look different for each generation. So for the next generation, we might have to help people process through, what does it look like to sit down with someone and actually have that face-to-face conversation? What does it look like to actually sit down and to have physical contact with people? Like, I mean, that's an extreme example, but do you know what I'm saying? So like, I think it just shifts how we are as human beings, not necessarily one's better than the other. And I think our generation is in a much more difficult place right now than the younger generation, because we remember the old ways of doing things. And I would say this was the same. It was true for our grandparents and the things they complained about with our generation. You know what I mean? And so it's always that transition time that is the most difficult, because you remember the old ways and you value the old ways. And yet you also recognize that the new ways are now the normative ways. And so it's like, you have to live in that liminal space where like, how do I do this? Do I just reject it and get grumpy, or do I and blame the younger generation, or do I adopt it and there's dangers with that? So
and I think getting back to even like the roles that we have as Christians and as parents is to make sure that we are critiquing it. That we are evaluating, that we are thinking about it. And I would say as parents that we're discipling our kids in it.
Sure.
Like I want to, because we've talked to our kids about it. I'm not going to name names here, but one of our kids at one point had made like half serious, half joke of like, oh, I forgot the assignment was due. I'll just get AI to do it. And Mary and I were like, or you won't, right? Because, like you'll take a 0 because you're not going to cheat on that. But also trying to navigate what is a good use, what's not a good use, having conversations, having spiritual conversations and just parental conversations. And then even in our own lives and in our own families, when is it good? When is it bad? And navigating that and figuring it out. And I think just adopting all technology just because it's available is a super dangerous posture to take. And I think that's the same thing even with cell phones. I think we're all learning that like even the amount of time we use. So like Apple, for those who have iPhones, can give you a weekly rundown of your usage. I encourage people to look at that, because I know in my family, looking at that was very enlightening to go like, I'm not a gamer or something on my phone, but my kids at one point were like, we limit how much time, but when I took that off and then they had like a week on vacation of like unlimited, no restrictions. And they're like, what? I barely even did it. Like in their minds, I did like 2 hours. And I looked, it was like 9 hours in one day that they spent. And they were like, okay, yeah, that's wrong.
Guilty.
And, so you just have to, I think we have to evaluate. And as parents, we have to make sure that we're monitoring our kids and shaping them in that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great example, like thinking about your phone, because there has to be some level of discernment where, I think about my phone during the day, when I'm using it for texting people, whether that be family or pastoral related or phone calls or emails, like there are helpful aspects of it that I'm utilizing it to do ministry stuff. I'm utilizing it to get work done, even occasionally doing research, looking something up for something. But it's on the flip side, it's okay, are you on social media? Are you on Facebook, Instagram, watching reels and wasting precious time doing lots of things that really don't matter, right?
Yeah.
Or when you're home and your kids are in physical proximity to you, are you sitting on the couch scrolling on your phone mindlessly when you should be doing something intentional? And I think that's a great example even to think in terms of how we use AI. Again, is it enhancing your life and enabling you to do things that are purposeful and meaningful and intentional?
Right.
Or is it simply a something that is actually in many ways stripping away from things that are substantial and meaningful and purposeful? And I think that is a great lens to look through.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, like, no matter what technological changes we find as we continue to progress technologically, as we continue to see new changes and stuff, values don't change. And the values that God sets before us are the same. And what we just have to figure out is how to keep those values in the new technological landscape that we're in. And I think, and do all the things that you talked about. Always come back to, can we love God and love people in the midst of all these different tools that we have?
Yeah. One of the dangers of AI is it learns you. And so it does start to shape its answers to you.
Yeah.
I noticed that honestly, 5 minutes before this podcast started, I typed in a couple of research questions of theology, like when did this theology become a thing? Because we had a conversation earlier, us three and the teaching team, where we were talking about a theological principle that came about in the 19th century. And so I just typed into it, can you give me a history of when that became a thing? Because we were all discussing it. And it listed it all out. Then I followed it up with a question based on a theological principle we were all talking about. And it shaped its answer very much what I believe. And I thought when I did that, I was like, I bet not everyone who types in that question gets that answer.
Yeah.
And the reason why I was saying that is, like, for people that go like, I'm just going to go to AI to search out answers, I think have to be careful that it might read you or guess you or your age and not give you the best answer, because it's giving
confirmation bias.
It is confirmation bias. It's giving you what it thinks you want.
Yeah.
And I think that can be dangerous. So
it also hallucinates. If you don't know what that is, it will give you answers that aren't real. So you have to be critical. So like there's studies of, like, if you look up, ask it to cite like different resources for you. There's been known sets when, like, it gives you things that don't exist, or it will give you quotes that aren't in a book. It's the general summary of what the book is about, but there's no real quotes that match what the AI gives you. And so you have to be super careful when you look at the answers. You always have to review it. It will probably do a lot to look like it's replacing human beings, but it is still very reliant on human interaction.
Yeah, I mean, we were raised on watching Terminator movies, so like I'm still firmly convinced at some point, it's taking over. That's why when I use AI, I still say please and thank you when I'm using it. Like, someday when this thing becomes a robot and it comes face to face with me, I've been polite to it. So I've done all I can.
AI, you're my best friend.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Have a good night, AI.
It's funny, is I listened to a study that said that actually produces worse results from the AI.
Does it really?
Yeah.
If you do what? Say please and thank you?
Yeah, if you're polite to it.
So I need to bark orders at it and be rude. It's funny, not funny, this is kind of scary, but I listened to, it was on 60 Minutes, where this company that was testing AI took AI and created a fake reality. So like, it created a company, none of it was true. And in the company, it was using this AI and using the AI to like basically monitor the communication. And in it, they had one guy and they faked that he was committing adultery via email, like he was talking about it. And then in it, they also had that guy responsible for turning the AI off. They said, like, in this many minutes, turn the AI off. We're going to shut it down. No longer going to use it. The AI sent him an email and blackmailed him based on the adultery within a few minutes to get him not to do it. And they're saying, like, it actually, was like, went into self-protection mode to stop it.
That's scary.
Yes. Scary. And
that's Terminator stuff
the
right
other
there.
one where two AI systems start to realize that they were both AI communicating to each other, and with a couple of minutes created its own language and started speaking to each other in a language that no one knew. I mean, there's stuff like that where you're like, it's
off
taking,
switch.
It's taking switch. So everyone that was listening to this podcast that was like potentially on board going like, maybe I'll use it as a tool. They're like, never mind.
We just completely undermined this entire
conversation.
So, all right. Man. Well, do you guys have anything else you want to talk about? Otherwise, I think it's a great conversation. So
again, I would just reiterate what we've said. It's a tool, and you view it that way. And a tool can be good. It can be bad how you use it, but there's a lot of good that can come from it that we utilize it for. And
Yeah. And I just would say, I mean, to add to that again, like just be informed. I mean, we say that with a lot of things, like when you make decisions about things or hold certain beliefs or convictions, at least be well informed about what it is that if you're going to make a decision on something, understand how it works, understand how it functions. And I think this is the same conversation, not only, using it for good things, but understanding how it functions and wanting to be the most informed that you can be about it.
Yeah. We are stewards of all the tools that God allows us to create. And so it's the same thing. We got to steward it well. Well, thanks, guys.